All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to our entire YouTube community. Thanks for joining us for our second episode of our live stream for Caspio Labs. My name is Ned. I am your host, and we have a lot of exciting content to get through today. But before I begin, can everyone hear and see me okay? Let me know in the chat, and we shall go ahead and begin with today's live stream. So if you are able to see and hear me, let me know, and we will go ahead and begin. Perfect. Okay, excellent. All right, one thing to point out for today's stream is we're going to be dealing with a lot of colors and the aesthetics. And if you tell yourself anytime during today's live stream, you know what, Ned, your colors are matching or you're not picking the right color that you're saying, there's a very good reason behind that. I am colorblind. Okay, so if that ends up happening, I apologize. Hopefully that won't happen today. But if you do see a different color than I do, trust me, your eyes are not deceiving you. They're deceiving me. So we're going to have to deal with that today, okay? But I promise it won't be as bad as I make it sound out to be. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's go ahead and begin today's live stream. I am currently logged inside my account. You should be able to see it. And I have two data pages created. I have a basic contact form. I'm going to do a quick preview here so that you can see the form. And today we're going to be looking at all the different ways of how we can customize the form using some simple HTML and CSS techniques to manipulate the elements to have a much more visually appealing submission form. So let's take a look at the first thing that we're going to cover today. So I'm going to go ahead and edit my data page. And what most people don't realize, because it's not intuitive enough, is that even inside a label field, you can actually put HTML and CSS if you want to target that specific label. It's very helpful if you want to isolate that one label from the rest of the other labels that you have in your submission form. So for example, in my label here, I could say something like this, span style equals, and then we could say maybe a different color. Now, when it comes to picking colors, one thing that I always use is a very simple color picker. I've used this many times. We can go up and down with this bar. We can also move this little circle around to find a color that we want. So let's just say, for example, we pick maybe a dark green color. And hopefully this is a dark green color. So I will grab my hex code for that specific color. I will go back to Caspio. And then right over here where it says color, I will put a hashtag. I'll put my color code, semicolon, and then maybe we can also make the font size a little bit bigger. I could do font size, and then we can say maybe 16 pixels, something a little bit bigger. Close the quotations, close the tag, and at the very end here at the label, we're just going to close the span tag and do something like that. So that's one quick tip that I can give you is when it comes to modifying labels, most of us are familiar with going to styles. Under styles, you can do a global change in the label. So when you apply the style, that style is applied and propagated throughout all of the labels on your submission form. But this is a good way to isolate the labels and just apply a specific style to each label if you like. If I hit preview now, you will see what my label looks like. It's 16 pixels and I made it green. Speaking of isolating, you can also actually apply just a specific style to one of your fields if you'd like. Again, if you're going and working directly inside the styles, we know that when we apply a different style to a field element, all of the fields will have that specific colors, but we can also apply a style to each field. Now, there's no specific place where I can put that inside the data page wizard. So what I need to do is I need to add a header and footer. I'm going to disable the toolbar. And in the header section, I'm going to create my own style. Okay, so inside the style, I'm going to call out that field and I manipulate that field using some basic CSS principles. Okay. Now, for me to locate that field, what you want to do on the submission form, if you're using a PC, you can hit F12 on the keyboard to bring up the inspect element. And with this, we can actually inspect every single element inside the form. And every single field on the form will have its own unique ID. Kind of like a database table, right? Where all of the records have their own unique ID. It's a primary key. Each field in our form will have its own unique ID as well. And all you need to do is grab that, copy it, go back to Caspio, and input that ID here. We're going to put a hashtag, paste the ID, and then we need our squiggly brackets. And inside the squiggly brackets, we're going to add our property and our value and how we want to modify that field. Also, keep in mind that all of today's content is being recorded. It's going to be available on our YouTube channel later on today. So don't worry if you're not taking notes. This is all going to be available later on today so that you can copy and watch at your own pace. So let's just take a look at this. Let's just do a background color. Okay, and the background color we're going to use for our field, once again, let's go back to our color picker, and why don't we go with maybe a lighter color, something like this. We're going to grab that hex code, copy it back in Caspio, and I will just paste that, semicolon, and then let's see what we get if I hit preview. Now you can see a different color for that specific field. What if I wanted to put a border around that field? Okay, I can go back to my style. I can do something like this, border radius, and why don't we do maybe 4 pixels and hit preview. Now you can see a round edge instead of a squared edge around the field itself. What if I wanted to, sorry, I talked about border, putting a border around the field, so let's do that next. This time I put a border radius to make the edge a little bit more round, but let's put a border around the field also. So we can do something like this. Border 1 pixel solid, and why don't we pick a darker color for our border? So let's come back here. Let's do this color here, copy it, back in Caspio, paste that, semicolon, and let's see what that looks like. Okay, so now you see a border around the actual field. You can make the border thicker if you want to. So if I go back to my data page wizard, and let's just say we make that 5 pixels, something a little bit more drastic. Okay. Can I apply the same style to the rest of my fields? Absolutely, I can. I can do it one at a time, but a much quicker way to do that is to go to the style, because remember, in the style, you can apply these changes on a global level, so you don't have to isolate one field at a time or one label at a time. So if I wanted the rest of my fields to have the same style, I can just copy the information from here. Let me save my changes. Let's go to the style and create a brand new style. I'm going to work off of the base template that's blue. Okay, that's the main style that I'm using today. And if I want to modify my text fields, I can go down to fields. I can go to source directly to modify my CSS. And all I need to do here is just make a few modifications to my CSS. I don't want to use this background color. I'm using a green background color. I'm using a different border color, also different radius. So a lot of these I can actually remove, maybe from here to here. And I can paste my new style or my new CSS. I can create this. Before I create it, I can apply that to my contact form, this specific style. Then I can click on create, and let's call this demo style NP, my initials. And I'm going to click finish. So once you add that CSS to that class and you refresh the form, now you will see how every single field has that same style. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to cover is how we can insert headings throughout the form. Also, if you're not happy with the aesthetics of the form, I know it doesn't look that great, but I'm just giving you all the different ways of how you can manipulate the fields and change the layout. This is not supposed to be a perfect looking form. It's just giving you ideas on how you can modify and how you can make your fields much more presentable. Next thing we're going to cover is how we can include headings throughout the form. Why don't we actually just change the field slightly, because I don't really like that there's a thick border around my fields. Let's do something like this. Let's edit the form. And first we're going to target the single one that we have. Instead of having a border radius, a border 5 pixel, let's just do a left border. So it only applies to the left border, but not all the way around the field. So let me take a look. All right, that didn't do what it was supposed to do, because I misspelled my text. Let's try that one more time. Okay, just need to type correctly today. Let me hit preview now. Something is not working the way it's a border left, 5 pixel solid, border radius, background color. Okay. I think because I'm applying the same style for all of the fields, so my style in Caspio here is overriding or superseding this style here that I have in an individual field. So let me go ahead and finish and save my changes, go back to my style, click edit very quickly, go under fields, source, and then what we're going to do here is simply put in border left. We're going to save our changes. All right, let's go ahead and reload the form once again. Okay, I think that's a little bit cleaner for me today. Let's do that. Let's keep the way the fields look, and let's move on to the next topic. So let's learn how we can add headings throughout the form to isolate or create sections or divisions inside the form so the end user knows what part of the form they're on at any given time. Okay, so in Caspio, what we can do is edit the form, click next a few times, and then we can insert what's called an HTML block. And you can insert as many HTML blocks as you want to. We can use a simple toolbar that we have here at the top to modify the heading. But personally, what I like to do, if you are savvy with HTML and CSS, I like to disable the HTML toolbar and just code in my own inline CSS. And we're going to use a div tag, style equals, and let's have maybe a light gray background color. So background color can be light gray, maybe F or maybe EE, okay, for our color. Then the color of our text can be a little bit darker, maybe 444. You can also add padding around the text if you need to, and you can modify the padding at a later time once you actually see what the heading looks like, so you don't have to get the exact pixel down correctly the first time you do this. So why don't we put top and bottom to be 10 pixels and left and right to be 20 pixels to start. Okay. I also want to do a border radius of maybe 5 pixels, and then why don't we also add a shadow behind the heading. Maybe that will look nice. And for shadow, I always use this link here. It has some preloaded shadows that I can copy, and I'm just going to go ahead and use maybe this one here. I'm going to copy that CSS, go back to Caspio, and just going to paste that right over here. And close my quotations, close it, and then let's call this personal information for our heading, and we're going to close our div tag. Okay, so let me preview to see what that looks like. And that's what the heading looks like. Now, if I want to put some padding underneath my heading, I can use margin. So let's just type in margin, and then we'll say top 0 pixels, right 0 pixels, bottom, I want that to be maybe 15 pixels, and then left 0 pixels. So let's see what that looks like. You can see how I'm creating a little bit of padding underneath my heading. Now, if I want to reuse the same heading throughout my form, it's very easy to do that. We can just copy this text. Okay, and let's go ahead and put one above the address info. So we're going to add one more HTML block. I'm going to disable the HTML editor and paste my CSS. And for this one, I can say address info and hit preview. Okay, so now you can see with a little bit of technique with CSS and HTML how we can add headings and how we can section off parts of the form so the end user doesn't feel overwhelmed and they know exactly what part of the form they're on. Okay. Also, you can put a shadow behind your fields. That's also something that we can do. Why don't we go into talking about buttons? Okay. Sometimes, let me take a look at my question here. Is there a website to get pre-made CSS styles if you went to a site to get a shadow box? So some websites might have their own style, especially when it comes to shadow. So you can do an inspect element on that website if you happen to like that shadow, and you can just grab it from that specific website that you're on. Okay, so that's one thing that I've done before. If you are browsing the web and you find a particular style that you like, you can always hit F12 on the keyboard, inspect that shadow, and then over here to the right, you're going to find all of the CSS, and then you can just copy that CSS and paste that CSS either inside Caspio or inside the data page wizard. Okay, I have done that so many different times. Okay, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. If somebody has already done it, you can copy and paste it inside your own CSS. All right, so let's talk about buttons. Sometimes the buttons don't really align with the way our fields are. Maybe we want this button to be left aligned. Maybe I want the button to be right aligned, or maybe I want to expand that button to be full 100%. So if you just want to simply move that button left to right or up and down, I recommend that you go to Styles. So let's go over here. Click Edit. And then under Layout, let's move down a little bit to find the button cells. Okay, so here's the button cell under Layout. Right now my button by default is set inside a center, but I can move that button either left or right. So it's completely your preference. If you prefer the button to be a little bit more to the left with some slight adjustment left to right, I would say put the button to the left, okay, hit save, go to data pages, preview the form, and you will now see how that button is left aligned. But now let's just say you don't like that there's padding here. I want to align my button with the label. Once again, let's go back to our style. Click Edit, Layout, Button Cells, and then you're going to find padding here inside this text field. So the way this works, it's actually going clockwise direction. So top refers to the top padding above your content. Right number, this second number will go to the right of your content. This is to the bottom of your content, and this is to the left. So it's basically specifying how much padding you want top, right, bottom, and left around that content, okay? So if I look at my form, I can see that I have 15 pixels here to the left, okay? I can guesstimate and just say, okay, maybe this is actually 5 pixels to the left. Or, even better, if you inspect the element, so let's bring up the inspect tool, and we look inside here. Here's that same value that we were looking at inside the style. So if I just lower this in real time, let's say we move this number down a little bit, you can see how my button is moving. And let's go with maybe 5 pixels. So that seems to be correct. So if I want that button to be evenly aligned with my label, I need this to be 5 pixels. And then in Caspio, I will just say 5 pixels from the left, save. And now back in data pages, if I hit preview, you can see how that button is completely left aligned. Okay. So yeah, aligning buttons is important, especially when you embed the form into a website, because you're going to have different content around the form, or the form could be by itself. So it's very important to know how to align that button. Okay, especially if you're as meticulous as I am when it comes to design, I always need to make sure my aesthetics look correct. Now, what if we wanted this button to be full 100%? I want the button to stretch out all the way across. I'm going to go back to my style. This time I need to go inside the buttons. Okay, not the layout. Layout controls spacing, left to right, up and down, and then, yeah, just basically how the button is positioned and oriented on the form. But the button element itself, if you go into source, here you can modify the look and feel of that button, the aesthetics. Okay, the colors, the label size, border radius, different font type. Also, what we can do here is change the width. So if I do the width 100%, okay, that's going to stretch out the button all the way across. So now if I hit save, okay, and I go back to my data page and hit preview, you will see how that button now goes all the way across. Now, if I want this button to be evenly aligned with my fields, again, I can inspect the element. So if I select my button here, and if I look at my padding here, top, right, left, bottom, let me make sure I'm in the right place. I want the button itself. Okay, so here we have padding. So this is top and this is right. So I'm guessing this needs to be 5 pixels as well. So if I make this number a little bit bigger, actually going up, not down. So let's say it is 25 pixels for the right side, that it's going to move this padding of the button to the left a little bit. So now I can go back to my style and change that value to 25. So under layout, button cells, change this to 25, hit save, back to my data pages, hit preview. Okay, and there's the button full width all the way across. I can also move the button up and down. If I need more padding above my button, I can do that. I can definitely do something like that as well. Okay. So with that, let's move on to the next topic. Again, if you guys have any questions or comments or feedback, we do have moderators on the call as well, and they are more than happy to capture all of your input. If there's something that you were hoping to see on the submission form side that I didn't get a chance to show you using HTML and CSS, definitely let me know. One thing that also comes up quite a bit is how do we put a logo above the form, and that's also something that's very simple. If I edit the form, click next, we can insert a header and footer, and inside the header section we can put in any logo that we want. Okay, so let's just say we go to Google and we look for Caspio logo and we go to images. Let's say we grab this image here. So I just need the image address where the logo is hosted. I can go back to Caspio, and then with a simple image source tag, equals, and then we paste, oh, not that one. Let me go and see if I can find a different image. That one's not going to work for me. Let me copy the image address and let me see. Yeah, that's much better. So let's go back to the data page, and now let's paste the host URL where that image is. Okay, we're going to close this, and then you can also set the width. So let's say the width is maybe 150 pixels. I don't need the image to be that big. Okay, so now when I hit preview, you will see that logo appear right above my submission form. Okay. So I have a question here from Eugene. So can you also do deployment for web and design it? I didn't prepare that for today. Maybe in the next class we can take some of our existing data pages that we built today and we can embed into a website. But yeah, unfortunately I didn't plan out that for today. This is just strictly modifying the form inside Caspio by applying some simple HTML and CSS. But when you deploy the form into your own website, the form might look exactly like that on your site, but if your website has its own CSS, sometimes that CSS will supersede Caspio style, and you have to kind of go back and forth a little bit between your Caspio style and your main CSS on your website until you find that exact look and feel that you're looking for. So it's just a matter of going back and forth slightly and modifying either your main style or the Caspio style to apply that specific aesthetic. Okay. Sounds good, Eugene. All right, so the progress bar we don't actually have planned for today. Progress bar is usually good if you're doing a multi-step form, something like this. Let's take a look. I have it saved over here, multi-page form. So at this point we are at 5%, but if I fill out the form and click continue, we go to 20%. So this progress bar, what I can do, Tim, is I can send you this file. If you want to contact me offline, please do so. I will send you this application that I created so that you can see how I did it. But it's actually very simple. I'm just using images from one data page to another to show the effect of a progress bar. Okay. Yep, sounds good. Let's go back here and let's save our changes. All right, let me preview one more time. So that's really all I had planned today for a submission form. Of course, you can put fields in multiple columns if you wanted to. You can put labels on top of the fields, inside the fields as placeholders. There's a lot of flexibility and customization options on how we can modify the look and feel of the forms. Honestly, I can spend all day talking about forms. I don't have that kind of time. I do have to move on to the next topic, but if at any point during today's call, if we have some time to answer something specific that you were hoping to see, I will be more than happy to address that. But next, let's move on to reports. So here's a basic Caspio report using a blue style. Okay, and sometimes people want to be able to put fields in the same row and maybe put that search button next to the field. So it's all inside a single row and we don't have the button underneath the fields. Right now, if I do that, so let's go ahead and edit the report. And let's say using this section on the search form, I say I want 4 columns with the label on top, and I hit preview. You see how the button is still underneath the fields? I want this button to be on the right side of my fields. Okay. So how do we accomplish that in Caspio? So one thing that you want to do here is you want to insert what's called an HTML block. And inside this HTML block, we're going to create a button. Okay, again, I always like to disable the toolbar in the Advanced tab. And very quickly what we can do here is we can input, so let's call this input type equals, and we're going to say submit, and then the value, so the name of my button itself, what text is going to appear inside the button, can say maybe filter. Okay, so if I hit preview now, you will see how I created a very simple button. I didn't apply any aesthetics to it just yet. Okay, I want to put this button in the same row as the rest of my fields. So I will go back to Caspio and I will now simply just say I need 5 columns and hit preview. And now you can see how the filter button is right next to my fields. Once I have this button here, I no longer have a need for this one. So now we can remove this button completely. And how do I do that? Well, I can create a style. Let me click Finish to save my changes. Let's go to Styles. Oh, I actually have it opened up here. So you can use the same existing style. Just be careful with that because we're using this style for the submission form, okay? And sometimes some of the elements can appear in both the submission forms and also the search form. So if you're manipulating the search form, I recommend that you create a brand new style. You can still use the same blue template, okay, to begin with. And then for the forms and details and results pages, the search form is actually modified right over here under buttons. Okay, so here's the buttons section in the source tab. We just need to find the CSS for the search button. So we just need to scroll down a little bit. So here's my search button. I don't need my search button to be displayed. So what we can do here is we can remove all of the CSS and simply just put display none. Okay, this is going to hide the button itself. So when I save my changes, let me make sure I apply that style to my report. Click Create. Let's call this Demo Report NP with my initials, and click Finish. All right, so let's take a look at my data page. I'm going to hit Preview. So we no longer see that button. We decided to hide it. You can't really interact with it. This becomes my main button now. Okay. What we can do next is we can modify the button. Same way as we did our div tag, our span tag, we can apply inline CSS inside that button to further modify it. And one thing that I always like to do, instead of me writing each property and value one at a time, I will just search for modify CSS button, something like this. I'll go to CSS button for W3 schools. And let's say I want this button over here. Okay. All we need to do here is grab the CSS. So every CSS line item that you see here pertains to this green button that we have. Okay, you can see that we have a background color green, color of our text is white, we have some padding around the button. Okay, so if I grab that CSS and I go back to my data page and click Edit, let's go to our button inside the HTML block. All we need to do is just create a inline style equals quotations and then paste that CSS and then close the quotations at the end. Okay, because I copied it all in one column, that's why it appears this way. Normally if you begin typing the inline CSS, it's all going to be wrapped inside a single line, one paragraph. Okay, so if I hit preview now, let's see what it looks like. There's my green button. From here, all I need to do is modify my button. Okay, so I can do an inspect element. Let's take a look. Here's my CSS for the button, and now I'm just going to apply some changes in real time. So let's just say we change the height of this button to be maybe 7 pixels. Left and right is a little bit too wide for me. Let's make this a little bit smaller as well. So we're going to go 7 by 24. And I now want to maybe change the size of my text. I think that's a little bit too big. Why don't we go with maybe 15 pixels? And I want to move that button down a little bit. And we're going to insert here margin. And then for now, I always like to go with 0 pixels, 0 pixels, 0 pixels initially. And I need to add some padding above my button to move it down. So let's go maybe 17 pixels. Okay, so now it looks like it's nice and evenly aligned. From here, I can copy all of my CSS, go back to Caspio, and just replace what I did before. Paste that in there, and now when I click Finish and Preview, everything should look correctly aligned. Okay, so this is a very common question that comes up a lot. How do I put my search button next to the fields? This is how you will go about doing that in Caspio. Okay. Why don't we move on to the results page? Sometimes we want to modify the results page to look a little bit different, maybe change the color of the heading, maybe include a button that takes me to a details page, a different looking button than our standard button, and maybe put an alternate background row color. Okay. So here's how I like to modify my reports. When I build my tabular reports, I have my own preference. I actually don't like to have a background color on the top. I like to put my labels to be black and bold. And then for my results, I put an alternate color to be gray. So to begin, I'll go to my style, create a brand new style. Again, I'll work off of the blue template. And then for my labels, right now my labels are color white. You can see the contrast here inside the results page. My labels are white. I'm actually going to make my labels darker. Okay, so we're going to make them black. Let's also make them bold. Okay, and then for the background color of the heading, so we need to go to table layout now. Okay, and under table layout, if I scroll down a little bit, we have header cells. You can see that my background color is blue. I'm going to change that background color to be white. All right, and then for my alternate rows, so that I can apply a light gray background for each alternate row in my results page, I can go to, once again, table layout, and then data rows. And then for the alternate rows, I like to include maybe a lighter gray. And I'm just going to have this be F8, 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 which is a light gray. Okay, you can see the background color. And now when I click on create, let me make sure I apply that style to my report. Click on create, and let's call this demo style report MP. This is just an arbitrary name. Don't worry about the naming for now. We're going to click finish. We're going to go back to our data pages, hit preview. And to me, this will be clean, but that's my own preference. Okay, this is the way I like to design my results page. Okay, and I also like to sometimes I'll put it underlined underneath my labels in the columns, just to have them stand out even more. I might even make them all uppercase. Okay, so to each their own, right, when it comes to design. The next thing that I want to cover is how do we create a custom button, okay, to take us to a details page. So let's edit the report. And let's go navigate all the way to the results page. Okay, and let's insert an HTML block. And let's move the HTML, let's leave the HTML block at the very top. Okay, again, I'm going to disable the toolbar in the advanced tab. And now let's create a very simple button. Okay, and the way I'm going to do that is just using an ahref tag. So I'm going to create a link first. So let's call this just hashtag for now because it's not taking me anywhere. And let's call it details. And close the A tag. So this creates a very simple hyperlink. Okay, so when I hit preview, you see a details link here to the left. So now how do I modify that to make that look more like a button? Okay, so once again, we're going to be using inline CSS. So we're going to put style equals, and now let's go with maybe background color. Let's find a blue color. Let me go to my color picker here. So let's go with maybe darker blue. Maybe something like that. Copy that, go back to Caspio, and let's go ahead and create that blue background color. Next, let's add some padding. Let's have maybe 4 pixels top and bottom, and maybe 5 pixels left and right. Let's do a border radius of maybe 3 pixels, and let's have the color of our text be white. Okay, so with just that simple addition inside the inline CSS, if I hit preview now, you will see how that starts to look like a button. I can add more padding around my text. I can make the size of my label be smaller or bigger. Let's actually make a few changes here. Why don't we put some more padding around that button? So let's say maybe padding 8 pixels top and bottom, and maybe 7 pixels left and right. Let me see what that looks like. Okay, so now the button's a little bit bigger. Okay. Maybe you can even change that text to be smaller. It's completely up to you how you wish to design that quote-unquote button. Okay, so let's go ahead and now save this because I need to create a link that's going to take me to the details page of each contact. Okay, so let me click finish here. All right, let's create a brand new data page here. And under reports, we're going to create a details data page. We're going to hit next. Okay, needs to be based off of the contacts table because that's where all of the details are of each contact. Let's give this a name. Contact details. We're going to apply, let's work off of the blue style to begin with. Hit next. Let's filter the data, and hopefully everyone in today's class knows how to pass and receive parameters via the URL because we're going to link that details page to a contact ID that we pass from the results page. Okay, so the contact ID needs to be my filtering field. In the advanced tab, we're going to receive value externally, and we're going to call this parameter CID. Value must be required. And now in the details page, you can choose what fields you want to display. So let's for now, let's move all of the fields to the right and click next. And this is going to be the standard layout of how your fields are going to be displayed in the details view. So when I hit preview, okay, no records found at this point because I'm not passing a contact ID, but you'll see what that looks like in just a moment. So come back here, click finish to save your changes, and let's grab the URL link to that data page. So here's the URL to the details page. Next thing I need to do is go and edit my report. And let's go back to our HTML button. And inside the HTML button, replace the hashtag with the link that we just copied, because when people click on this details link, it needs to take me to that details page. But we're not done yet. We need to pass the ID of the contact here. So add a question mark, CID parameter name, equal sign, and then we're going to insert the field that we want to pass, which is the contact ID. And now it's going to be linked together. So when I click finish, and let's say we reload our data page. All right, now I can click on the details link for Rhiannon. And when I do that, I pass her ID, and my details page is going to filter the data that belongs to Rhiannon. So when it comes to organizing your details page, it's limited in terms of layout, how you position the labels and fields, but there is a really nice workaround if you are familiar with HTML and CSS. Let's edit the details page. All right, so this is the standard layout. This is what we just looked at, where you have all of the labels on the left-hand side and you have all of the data on the right side. One thing that you can do here is you can just insert an HTML block. And inside this HTML block, you can feed all of your values as parameters, and you can design that however you want. Okay, so just to give you a quick example, let's say you give your label a name, maybe first name. Okay, and you turn that into a bold label. Okay, and then we put a colon and then maybe some space, and now you can insert your first name as a parameter inside the HTML block. Believe it or not, you can feed all of these values inside a single HTML block if you want to put tables here, divs to organize the layout of the details page. And if you have the first name populating here, you no longer have a need for this field here, so you can remove it from the details view. So now what's going to happen is when you click finish and save, and you go back to your report, let me just close a few screens. All right, and I refresh. You see first name Rhiannon, but it removed the actual field. Now I just have to insert the rest of my fields inside that HTML block. So let's do that very quickly, okay? I'm going to edit the details page. Let's go to the details view. And inside the HTML block, let's create a new line space here, or line break, and then let's copy this a few times. You don't have to keep typing it, right? So let's just do a few fields. Let's do first name, last name. Let's also do title. And let's do, underneath title, we have company name. And let's have maybe one more, phone. So now we just have to replace these parameters, these fields, with the correct field. So let's remove the first name there and insert last name. Title, same thing. We can remove this and add our title field as a parameter, and then we have the company name. It's much easier to control the layout and how fields are organized inside the HTML block because you have full freedom to do whatever you want with your fields inside that HTML block, especially if you know how to code using HTML and CSS in terms of how you rearrange these elements. Okay, so let me go ahead and put, let's just have up to the phone name, phone field. And once you include all of your labels and all of your fields inside the HTML block, you really have no more need for it here inside the standard display. So we can remove last name. Let me see. We can remove title, company, phone, and I think I went all the way up to the phone, right? So let's click finish, refresh. Okay, you can see how it's now getting a little bit more compact, all right? And once you remove all the fields from there and you include them in the HTML block, now you can have full flexibility to organize the layout and how your data is displayed in the details view. Now, many of you are probably wondering here, so how do I now edit my details page? right? I cannot make my fields editable inside the HTML block. Okay. The question here is, can you make any field a link? Yes, you can. You can make any one of these fields become a link if needed. Okay, you just need to wrap it around the ahref tag, and then it'll become a clickable link, and it will link back to maybe a different data page or a different data set, maybe a report that's linked to that value. All right, so now how do I now create this to be editable? So here's how we do that. I'm going to edit my details page. And let's navigate all the way to this screen. And let's just include a simple clickable hyperlink. So let's just have ahref equals, for now we're going to put a hashtag here, or pound, and then we're going to close this, and we're going to call this edit details, and close the a tag. Let's also do a line break here. Maybe do 2 line breaks. Okay. Maybe you want this to become a button, just like what we did with the results page. Okay, right now it's a simple clickable link, but I can replicate what I had in my results page. So if I go back to my HTML block, oh, this is the contact details. I apologize. This is not the results page. So here I can put my own style. Let's just do something basic here. Maybe style equals background color can be gray, color of the text can be black, and then padding can be maybe 5 pixels top and bottom, 10 pixels left and right. All right. So let's see what that looks like. If I hit finish to save my changes and I reload my details page, I will be able to see that. I forgot to change the color of my text. So let me, actually I did, but I forgot to put a pound symbol in front, or a hashtag. So let's come back here and let's put a background color, EEE color. Well, that actually looks correct, but for some reason it's oh no, it's not supposed to be FFF. That's the white color. Sorry, it needs to be 444. There we go. Finish. Refresh. Okay, so now I can click on this link to take me to a data page that allows me to edit that data. Okay, but before we can do that, okay, we need to pass the value in the URL. Okay, to link the contact to that specific contact ID. So let me create this this details page that allows me to edit data. So I will come back here, click a new data page, and let's build a details data page and click next. Once again, based off of the same table, let's give this a name, edit contact details. We're going to use maybe the same blue style, English, and hit next. And once again, we're going to need to filter data because we need to receive the parameter contact ID to the edit form. Receive value externally CID. That's the parameter name. Value must be required. Hit next. Move all the fields to the right, and just make all of your fields now either become a text field or a different field element. If you want that to be a drop down or a text area, it's completely up to you how you want all of your fields to be modifiable. Okay, so let me change this really quickly and click finish. So let's grab the deploy code. We're going to grab our URL, copy it. Let's edit the contact details page, and let's navigate all the way to our HTML block. All right, so now we can replace that hashtag, paste the direct URL link to the edit form, and we still once again need to pass the ID. Okay, so we're going to put a question mark, CID equals, and then we can pass that contact ID. This one is receiving it, so we're going to put a CID parameter name so that it's displayed inside that URL. Okay, so let's go ahead and click finish and save, and let's see what it looks like. We're going to maybe start from the beginning. Let's grab my deploy code to my report, copy it, come back up here, and let's say we go to Rhiannon. Okay, there's the details that I've modified, and now when I click on this link, it takes me to the edit form where I can modify Rhiannon's information, and upon update, I can now go back to the details page once I save my changes. So let's complete the whole workflow here. I'm going to make that change very quickly. One thing that I will need is I will need to go back and just grab this URL to the details page. So let me copy that link. Let's go back and edit this data page here. And under destination, okay, I want to redirect the user to a new page. Let me paste that link right there. So when I click on update, it's going to return me back to that details page once I make those updates to the contact. One thing that I recommend that you do here is just pass back the value CID equals, and then just say CID like that. Okay, so that you're passing back the ID to that details page so that you can see the details for that specific contact. Finish. Now let's test it out once again. Okay, so I'm going to go to Rhiannon. I'm going to click edit, and if I change this to maybe Becky and I hit update, it's going to take me back, and you can see how I updated the first name. But the whole point here is to show you that inside the HTML block, what's very, very useful is to be able to rearrange these labels and fields however you want. Because right now, if I left it like that, I can put a background color behind my labels and my fields, just so that you can see. If I edit my contact details, right, so I can put this inside a div tag. So div, as you can see, I use a lot of divs when I'm putting in my HTML and CSS. So div style equals, let's just say background color can be maybe same gray. Border radius can be 5 pixels. Let's see, anything else? Maybe you want a border to be 1 pixel solid and maybe a darker gray, maybe 999. And then you just close that, you wrap that inside a div. And then maybe we can even put some padding of top and bottom can be 10 pixels, and also 10 pixels can be left and right inside that div. So all of the information that you see here is going to be inside this container. And then this is the inline style that's going to be applied to this box, to this div, okay, where we have a background color gray, border radius is 5 pixels, border around that box is 1 pixel, and then we have padding inside the div that's 10 pixels top and bottom and 10 pixels left and right. So now when we click finish and save, and I refresh, you can see what that looks like. Okay. Just some simple techniques to style the details page, the submission form, and the reports. Let me know if anybody has any questions. We are almost done with today's content. So if you do have any questions, something that you were hoping to see on the report side that I haven't covered, I am happy to show you. So how do you center the whole form on the page? So that's a good question, okay? Are you trying to center the form using a Caspio direct URL link, or are you embedding the form into your own website? Because if we're embedding the form into our own website, the web page itself will have its own content, and it's easier to actually center the form because you can just leave some space in that part of the website, okay? So the question here is there a website that will assist me with HTML and CSS codes? It's like a foreign language to me. No problem. It used to be a foreign language to me as well. My recommendation is W3 Schools. Let me go ahead and paste that in the chat window. Okay, so here it is. And here you're going to be able to learn all about HTML. And I promise you that if you go through each tutorial, what I really like about W3 Schools is that you can try yourself everything in real time, and you can make modifications in real time. And then you can carry over whatever CSS and HTML you come up with in W3 Schools, you can carry that over to your Caspio data page. Okay, but this to me is the best way to learn just some basics on HTML and CSS, W3 Schools. Okay, if you get overly ambitious and you want to learn more, you can, once you get past HTML and CSS, you can go into JavaScript. Okay, which is a dynamic way of changing things and elements on the web page, right? You can do if and then type conditional forms. Then you can do SQL if you want to work more on the database side. Okay, HTML, CSS, JS, and SQL can all be injected inside a Caspio data page. Okay, to create even more dynamic workflows, and it gets a lot of fun when you do that. Okay. I did have a question here. I just want to make sure I answered the one when it comes to centering. Let me take a look. Just trying to find that in the comments section here. Bear with me for a second. How do you center the whole form on the page? All right, so if we're using a direct link, let's say we are looking at our submission form. Let me just grab my deploy code here. Just copy that, paste that here. All right, let's say I wanted to center that form here in the middle. Now in Caspio, there's actually a very simple way to do that. You can actually go to our knowledge base, howto.caspio.com, and if you're looking for, let's say, center form, let me see if I can find the layout options maybe. Nope, that's not it. Align form. Let me see if I can just find it. I forgot what layout options, styles, how to fix. It's here somewhere. Center data page maybe. All right, so let me go ahead and find it in one of my other accounts that I have. It'll be easier for me. Let me go ahead and log in here. And I will go to this account. And let's look at the form that I built before. So let me open it. Go to data pages, edit my form, and go ahead and just, this is what you'll need to center your form, okay? So you'll need this, which is hashtag Caspio form, and then div, and inside the squiggly brackets you put margin 0 auto, which means it's going to center the form right in the middle. So if I copy this and if I go back to my other form, let's switch over the account. It's down here somewhere. Okay, so let me look at my demo today, HTML and CSS. Let's edit the form. And then in the style, all right, directly inside the style, you can just hit enter a few times and paste that. And this will hopefully center the form with just a little bit of CSS like this, all right? I definitely need to make sure I close that squiggly bracket. Let's not have that missing. And if I hit preview, now you can see how the form is centered. You can actually include this inside the HTML block. If your logo is hovering or floating here to the left, instead of putting the logo inside the header section, just copy that and put it inside the HTML block. So I can put that here. Like that, hit preview, and now both the logo and everything else will be centered. Let me hit finish, and let's take a look and see what other questions are coming in. So bear with me for a second. Hopefully that answers the question on centering the form. I answered the W3 school question, so go ahead and use that. So will the redirection to the details page work on the own domain's deployment? So if you're embedding these data pages into your own domain, each one of your web pages will have its own URL. So instead of using a direct URL link like I did, you're going to use your URL where that data page is embedded. So it's not going to be a direct link. Okay. Hopefully that answers that question. You're going to have your own URLs where you're embedding your data pages. And instead of grabbing a direct URL link like I did today, you're going to grab the URL of that web page. And inside the HTML block, you're going to use that URL instead. So that's the difference here between using direct links and embedding your data pages into a website. It's super simple. It's just the only difference here is what URL you grab. If you're using direct URL deployment method like I did, or if you're embedding. Let's have a look. Few more questions that are coming up here. Can we find a simpler way to add icons? Okay, so where are you thinking of adding icons? Let me know where you were thinking of doing that. Is it going to be on the submission form side? Is it going to be on the report side? What were you thinking? Okay, so good question here is you mentioned you can copy CSS codes from other sites you like. If I find a cool form on another site, how do I copy and paste the CSS codes? Good question. All right, so let's say you're browsing the web, web form examples. And let's just take a look at 10 web forms examples you want to copy immediately. All right, so for example, Let me see if I can find one that I like. Just to give you an idea how this would work, I mean, I'm not really too crazy about any of these forms, to be honest, but let's say I like this button, I like the color of the button, I like the CSS behind it. I can just inspect the element. All right. Okay, this is an image, so this is not an actual form. Maybe it will take me to a form if I click on it. Okay. Let's see if we can find another one, because that's an image. I can't really inspect an image. It's not going to give me the CSS properties for that. Let's try something different here. And we have about 5 or 10 minutes left on today's live stream. Hopefully I will get to a lot of your questions. If not, we will definitely collect your feedback and get back to you either via email or on our next live stream. But hopefully you enjoyed today's content. I was trying to show you just different ways of how you can apply CSS and HTML. It wasn't meant to be an actual tutorial on how to use HTML and CSS just because we have a lot of content to cover. But if you watch the video later at your own pace, hopefully you're going to be able to clone some of the things that I did today into your own forms and very quickly make that work. Unfortunately, I can't really find something. All right, hopefully this will give me something. Yeah, looks like they're all images. I can't really get to a form to inspect the element. I'm trying to think of a website where I like the form. So if there's a website in mind that you have and you send me the link in the chat, I will go to that website and we will inspect it. Okay, like this I can inspect, right? So if I can do F12, and if I look at this button here, you can see the background color is this one here. The color of my text is white, FFF, okay? And border radius is 4 pixels all the way around. That's why you see a round edge here, okay? So if you like that, you can just copy that color, go back to your button CSS, and modify the button to have that same color, and also the same color text to be white. All right, so that's one example that we can copy the CSS over here to the right. The live streams are always Mondays at 10 a.m. California time. So as long as you remember to join at 10 a.m. California time, these live streams are always going to be available. And they're dedicated to learning how to use the platform. We're going to cover a lot of different topics. Okay. And every single live stream will be available on our YouTube channel at a later time, so that if you don't remember something that we covered in the live stream, it is available for you to go back to and just watch the video at your own pace. I need to revisit some of your content. Will this be available on YouTube? This will be available sometime today. Okay, so just keep an eye out for it on our YouTube channel. You might even get an email notification if you're subscribed to our channel to let you know that this video is available. Okay? All right, let's take a look. Is there a way to make one column in the grid edit in a tabular report have a background color? There is. I can actually tackle that question offline, Matt. So if you can do me a favor, and if you contact our support team and just ask for Ned's email and just shoot me an email. I have to investigate a little bit to find out how that's done. So if you just give me a little bit of time to look at it, I think there's a way to make one column in the grid edit become a different color compared to the other columns. Okay. All right. So let me take a look. User select, and only because I'm running out of time, I only have 5 more minutes, so it will take me a little bit of time to investigate and find out how we can do that on grid edit, because I've never done it before, so it's something that I would have to look into offline. All right, let me take a submission form for icons. User select from a list box. Certain reports submitted by other users. Users have to make their selections all over again every time. How can the network remember a user selection at login? Okay, so this one again is another question that will have to be taken offline, because just don't have the time to investigate that. It's something that sounds, theoretically, it sounds like we can do, but it's just unfortunately right now we're running out of time here, and I'm only looking at questions that I can quickly answer, but we are collecting your feedback, Agato. Okay, we're collecting the feedback, and we're going to get back to you on that question either before end of day or sometime this week. Okay, so don't worry, we are going to answer that for you. Submission form icons. Submission form icons. So here's a video that you can watch. Okay, so if we go to youtube.com, Caspio Inc., and if we look for icons, well, not like that, icons Caspio, how to add icons next to field names. If you're not able to get an answer after watching this 6-minute video, then definitely let me know, because in the video itself you'll see, let me just skip the ad. I show you how to place icons to the left of your fields. Okay, it's going to require some HTML knowledge, but if you watch the video, I explain in detail how that's done. So I'm going to share this link in the chat window if anybody else wants to see how that's done. So hopefully that's what you meant by icons inside the submission form. This will give you a good understanding of how that's done. Is it possible to include font awesome for field names? Absolutely. Yeah, inside a header of the data page. Remember how I created the style? Inside a header of the data page, there just put your source for the font awesome. You can include the link. I think it's a Google API that has all of the library of all the fonts that are available. And then in Caspio, when you're modifying your labels or modifying your fields, you can call that back by putting a font family and using a specific font family that you want for your labels. So it is definitely something that's possible. Okay. And I'm going to answer maybe 2 more questions, and then we will go ahead and end today's live stream. And again, I appreciate you guys for coming to these sessions. I appreciate your time. Hopefully you find them valuable in improving your own applications. And I hope to see everyone else on the following Monday as well. We want to grow this community. And if you want to get notified for any of the upcoming streams, topics, and what we're going to be doing, definitely make sure you subscribe and turn that notification on so that you can get a reminder. Okay? So let's take a look. Will you be making more training videos in the near future that include making more apps? You know, if that is something that a lot of people have a desire for, and if they want to see more full application implementations through videos, definitely suggest that to our team. At the moment, my hands are tied with a lot of other things that I'm working on. But if that's something that people want to see for specific use cases, contact our team and let them know, because then it's going to go to our management team, and then our management team can decide if that's something that we want to invest our time in. I know I've done a few in the past. I did enjoy doing those UVG's Ultimate Video Guides, so if you guys want to see more of that, definitely let us know, and we can dedicate our time to it. Take me to the next level. I remember your videos, and they are very helpful. All right, thanks, Agato. I appreciate the feedback. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to end the stream now on my end. The chat will remain open if you guys wish to communicate with our team some more and answer any more additional questions. Stick around. We do have moderators here. We're going to close the actual live stream in about 5 minutes. So if there's still any pending questions that remain, our team will be there, okay? Sounds good, Van. Thanks so much for coming in today as well. Hope to see you guys next week, okay? And when I say see you guys, I mean quote-unquote see you guys, because I won't actually get to see you, but at least you get to see me. All right, thanks, everyone. Have a good day. Stay safe. And I will end this stream on my end, but like I said, the chat will remain open if you wish to communicate with our Caspio team. All right, have a good day, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.